Hi, I'm Chris Vavra. I'm a senior editor for WTWH Media, working here on behalf of Control Engineering, here live at Automate 2024 in Chicago. And I'm here today with Brandon Teachman, an application engineer for VCAWI. He is an expert in PLC programming and machine vision, and I'm happy to have you here as you've written many articles for us already. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So how's Automate going for you?
It's going well. I was surprised how much stuff's going on, how much new stuff I've run into. It's been an interesting time so far.
Has anything kind of surprised you as far as what you've seen, like you didn't expect to see it automate?
Sure, the amount of people doing robotics and vision with the robotics.
Yeah.
So that's something new. I've seen it done before, but so many people doing the vision in the robotics.
Yeah, it's definitely been a trend in the last couple, 3 years, particularly as automation becomes more prevalent. And yeah, and the amount of vision they're using in like 2D, 3D, AR, VR, it's really incredibly sophisticated.
It really is, and I'm surprised how many people are implementing that. And then on top of that, putting like the AI component to know what you're picking up, putting in the right spot, detecting the right part, and all that.
Yeah, it's merged so well together the last several years. It's like, they used to be so one-dimensional in what they can do. Now it's like, what can't they do? Or
Exactly.
it feels like it's coming that way. So, but with all this vision and all this data, managing it is so important these days. And in your position as an application engineer, who you work with, how are you helping manage this data, and how are you trying to make it easier for engineers to get what they need?
Sure. So a few different things. A lot of time we're helping the customer with the data side, trying to reduce the size of it. So trying to make it so the data is report on exception. So when something changes, for example, versus storing every 10 seconds like you used to do back in the day with a lot of that stuff. And the other thing is going to protocols where the data is smaller packets. So the data going even across the switches is smaller.
Yeah.
So really trying to reduce the data rather than try and transform it, for lack of a better term. So just giving them new tools to be able to shrink it.
Right. Synthesize it to what they need, not necessarily, giving them a glut of information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that might mean an edge node there processing the data and basically getting them just what they need and sending it to where they need it too.
Yeah.
So you might have a edge node collecting the data, and then some is going one place and then the other stuff's going a different place.
Right. All the unfiltered maybe goes into the cloud, whereas what they need is sent to their tablet or wherever they prefer to have as their data storage unit.
Correct.
So, and with all this information, AI ML, that is come into the public consciousness the last couple of years, thanks in large part to LLMs like ChatGPT. But I've heard it being used a lot in PLC programming, and I was wondering what your experience has been as far as that goes, AI and PLCs.
So machine learning languages are great at structured text. So you tell it what you want, and it's great at giving you that structured text back, especially when you can define it, telling you exactly in detail what you're looking for and sort of what you want. The one thing that I've seen new very recently, and Code Systems sort of did a webinar on this recently, they have partners who are making add-ons for Code Systems that go right in it, you tell it what you want, and it spits it into the program. So you can say you want data, you want it all just in the program, you want to make separate files, everything. There's also somebody out there, and I apologize, I can't think of their name, that made a flowchart software where you're writing your flowchart out for what your machine's going to do, and it's sending that data back to you for structured text.
Yeah, it's an interesting variation on sort of the copy-paste job, but it's taking all that information from the information silos or whatever, and then transplanting it easily into the system, and giving the engineer a leg up, and really taking what could have been hours of work into minutes.
Exactly. It's an amazing technology, and lots of people aren't using it yet, but I see there being a lot of adoption quickly.
And it's like, I think for some of them, they know what it can do. Like they just haven't quite figured out a way to make it user savvy for them yet. I think that's true for a lot of these like applications. Like they see it, but they can't quite, get that into something practical for them. It seems like.
Agreed. There's a lot of opportunities for people to adapt it.
Yeah. And, with programming languages also, coming into the fore, Python is very popular, C++ is very popular. You still got that old school stuff, ladder logic, I can't tell you how many articles we've done on ladder logic, on control engineering. It's like, people love ladder logic, but there is that generational gap between ladder logic and Python. It's like, how are you trying to help kind of bridge that gap?
Sure, it's mainly with training. So we're getting, like I think they said this morning in our opening keynote, there's a lot of IT people getting into the automation side. So it's getting them trained specific to the hardware, let's say, and stuff like that. So what I'm seeing a lot of people do is they'll send it to Waggle, for example, who has training where they're going over code sys, but specifically applying, this is how you do it from C++, this is how you adapt it, or C#, this is how you adapt it to structured text. You also have people that are making video training specific for that and geared towards those computer programmers. But most of the companies out there are saying more to, let's say, the manufacturers or those training companies to bridge that gap for them because they don't have training programs set up specific to them.
Right. And, you know, with AI/ML, you can kind of, you know, make it even faster and more user savvy, you know, maybe take some of that guesswork and some of the harder details out. Like, okay, here's the baseline. Now you can go from there, and we'll have the tutorials for you set up so you can learn even better.
Correct. And even with that, making that structured text, as long as they know the C++, they're sort of relating to it, if you know what I mean. And it's just a new language for them. So they know the harder stuff, and they're just applying it to our industry.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, also I've been seeing a lot of open source, you know, open source programming, you know, it's like, it's really kind of playing into all of this as well. And what impact has it been having from your experience?
I'm seeing a lot of customers use that as their proof of concept. So they'll turn up a MQT broker, either being HiveMQ or one of the other ones through AWS, get their data back from their PLCs, then use Node-RED to create a simple dashboard, trying to get buy-in before they spend the money to create a bigger project. Some of those open source tools I do see making their way in where people are buying in and paying for the premium versions to grow. HiveMQ is a great example of that. HiveMQ has their free version, for lack of a better term, out there that's open source. But most of these big companies, when they're doing the large deployments, they're paying the extra to have that paid version to be able to use all the tools that are available for it.
It's interesting that, you know, people use it as kind of a backstop, as a way to kind of, you know, just make sure that, you know, nothing went wrong or something. I hadn't really thought of it in that context, but it makes sense because, you know, if you're doing all this, you know, complex programming, you know, you need something to, you know, act as, you know, that final verification. I hadn't thought of it quite like that. And that's good for younger engineers as well. You know, it gives them that, you know, extra step of assurance that, yes, you are doing this correctly.
Agreed. And I even, like, for home use, I've set up MQTT brokers just to be able to try and get more knowledge outside of work. So I just have a simple MQTT broker feeding stuff from my house that I'm displaying in Node-RED, for example, just to be able to learn more about it and be able to show it easily and cost effectively.
You mentioned MQTT and some of these other protocols, you know, becoming more and more standardized, and, you know, everything's not exactly becoming one language, but everything seems to be coalescing in the last several years. Like, everything's becoming more standardized and more familiar. What do you think, like, the next step of that evolution will be?
Sure. So, and I might be wrong. I mean, things have turned out different than I thought they would in a lot of cases.
Well,
but I see, you are 100% correct. I see CodeSys, for example, becoming more popular in different manufacturers where they're not necessarily making that software themselves, they're deploying it out. But that's just, people right now put wrappers on CodeSys, for example. So you might not know you're using CodeSys. So ABB, for example, on some versions of their software is using CodeSys. Schneider's, they're putting a wrapper over it so it says Schneider or ABB. I think you'll see more people take off those wrappers and make tools to work with CodeSys. Maybe just their hardware, but maybe also so they can resell those features to other people and become more of a data-driven company, for lack of a better term, on their side too, where they're able to use that for different people.
And data, you know, turning data into information and vice versa. You know, it's the tool of the 21st century. It's our currency.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you very much, Brandon. I appreciate your insights today, and thank you again for your contributions to control engineering.
Thank you.
So
pleasure.
If you enjoyed this video, we have more interviews from Automate 2024 at Control Eng TV on our YouTube channel, and you can also find links attached to this video to Brandon's articles, including his most recent one on PLC programming on controleng.com. And I'm Chris Vavra, Senior Editor, WTWH Media. Thank you for watching this video. Have a great rest of your Automate if you're here.